What do you need to know about working in Yellowstone National Park? So, I've worked in Yellowstone for 2 summer seasons now. I worked at the Lake Hotel there in the Lake Village, and this video is kind of to go over if you are either thinking about working in Yellowstone or maybe already have received an offer to work there, you might be wondering, what can I expect? What is going to be my experience there? Now, I will say my experience, I was at Lake Village both times, so I won't have much to say about what it's like working in Old Faithful or Mammoth Hot Springs or any of the other villages there in the park. The park is pretty big, each village is quite different, but this is my experience and what kind of advice I have to offer from my perspective here. Now, to start, Yellowstone as a whole is very remote. A lot of people are not aware of how remote it is, especially certain parts of the park. For example, from Lake Village, the closest Walmart is about an hour and 45 minutes away. You have to drive all the way out of the mountain, down the mountain, just far away. And that's pretty much the case for a lot of things. If you want like an actual hospital, there's a clinic. There's several clinics in the park, but if you want an actual hospital, again, it's several hours away. And there's not a lot of your typical shops and stores and just kind of comfort places that you would have in normal areas of the world. So you're not going to find a Starbucks there and there. They have their own cafes, but or McDonald's or Taco Bell, you're going to have to drive, hours away to the nearest towns to get to those places. So now the thing about it being remote, and for the company that I worked for, now they do have their own employee meal plan and everything, so you don't really have to go and get your own groceries. Because even that, there's a few little stores that will have groceries, but there's not a proper big grocery store in the park. Again, you would have to leave the park. And some people also are not, some people don't like remoteness. I do. I enjoy it. It's nice and quiet. But for sure it is very different from, living in a normal town or city. Everything's super far away from each other, even from village to village. It's a long drive. If you don't have a car, you can feel very kind of trapped in your village because there's not really any public transportation. There's a few free tours that you might be able to get as an employee that will take you around the park, but not really just regular forms of transportation. So again, if you don't have a car, unless you make friends with people who have cars, it can be pretty difficult to see the whole park and enjoy the whole park. And it is an adjustment period, especially if you're from a larger town or city and then going to somewhere like Yellowstone where it's very quiet, excluding the tourists. Very quiet, lots of wide open spaces, wildlife, a very different way to live for sure. But that is definitely something to consider. If you feel like you need to be around a lot of people and the hustle and bustle and need to have all your stores and shops and restaurants near you, Yellowstone's not going to be the place for you. You're very, very out from where most things are. You're up in a mountain, basically, especially up in the Lake Village. I would say maybe Old Faithful is a bit more or less isolated, less remote, and you are closer to the west entrance of the park, which is West Yellowstone, and that is considered civilization. And it does have lots of shops and restaurants, but I would say anywhere in the park is noticeably more remote than places outside of the park. Now, the other thing to consider is Wi-Fi. So my first season that I worked there was absolutely no Wi-Fi connection at all. They had some sort of problem with, I think, the cell towers. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah, my first season there, absolutely no connection at all. You couldn't look up, you couldn't Google anything on your phone, you couldn't connect to any Wi-Fi in your computer. There was supposed to be employee Wi-Fi, but again, it just wasn't working for that whole season. So my friend and I, if we needed to look something up, we would go to the hotel business center, and we would look stuff up there occasionally, even if it was just like the weather report, just anything. But then the second season, fortunately, we did have Wi-Fi, and it worked pretty well, the employee Wi-Fi. So there was no complaints there, but I would say overall, now my friend and I both had Verizon, so we had perfectly good cell service and coverage and everything. But I have heard that people who do not have Verizon, in that area, do not have much connection at all. So that could be difficult to deal with for some people, or for a lot of people actually. And then sometimes the Wi-Fi can still be spotty, especially during storms. So that is another thing to consider, like how reliant are you on the presence of Wi-Fi in your life and being able to look up anything you want, right then and there. Or being able to use your computer and, be online all the time, and all that. So for a lot of people, that would be a deal breaker. But then again, if you're going to the park for the scenery, to see the wildlife, to work in a beautiful place, then I would say like it's worth it, because for me, in the first time around with no Wi-Fi, like that was an annoyance, especially if I wanted to look something up. But the area was just so stunning that I just kind of lived to learn to live without it pretty quickly. So it really wasn't too much of a bother for me. And it gave my friend and I kind of more time to let's do a puzzle. Let's wander around. Let's see what we can find, just like random side quests, I guess, of just things to do, more hikes, more time for hiking, and spending time at the beach, So, as long as you're not absolutely addicted to your phone or Wi-Fi or anything, I still feel like it's a totally worthwhile experience, just to be in Yellowstone and to live there and enjoy the whole space. But let's see, the other thing about what to know about working in Yellowstone, especially I would say in Lake Village and maybe even Canyon Village with their high elevations, is that the weather is totally unpredictable. It remains kind of chilly throughout the year. I remember when I was first interviewed, the woman who interviewed me kind of brought up how extreme the weather could be and that it could even snow in the middle of July. It did not snow in July when I was there, but it snows late into the season. The snow sticks around late, and then it snows early, once fall comes around again. So about late June, even early July, I would say starting early July and then going into August are about the 2 months you have where it's nice and like a nice kind of more summery temperature, but it really doesn't get, I've never seen it go above maybe 80 or 81 degrees. Very dry air, no humidity. You're up in the mountains, again, Lake and Canyon Village are almost 8,000 feet up. So it's very, for that reason, also altitude sickness is something to consider. If you know you get altitude sickness, or maybe you don't know if you get altitude sickness, but a lot of people do get it when they first come up there. The first week or two can be the worst. For most people, it's just kind of a shortness of breath, headaches, tiredness, fatigue, things like that. There are a few people that they just can't work up there. They have to go to a lower elevation to work. But I feel like that's more rare. I would be more cautious if you have any breathing issues and things like that. And then I think the dry air just kind of compounds that issue. But I personally did not have much altitude sickness when I first got there, and I came from Florida. But when I first got there, for the first week and a half, I would say I was noticeably out of breath, going up and down stairs or just walking around. I was out of breath, and then I would get bloody noses sometimes. But other than that, I really did not get that much altitude sickness. Now, I was drinking a lot of water. That is the main thing they tell you to do, is to drink a lot of water, to hydrate yourself and try to prevent against the worst of altitude sickness. But yeah, it usually takes about 1 or 2 weeks to fully acclimate to that high elevation. And again, back to the extreme weather, I've seen storms just appear out of nowhere, and the rain is so cold, you don't want to be caught out in it. So if you're out hiking, especially long hikes, always bring like rain gear, layers, you don't want to be unprepared. You always want to have like a backup plan. Yeah, don't expect it to be too hot in July and August. It really doesn't get much hotter than 80 degrees. Now, the other thing to consider is the housing and meal plan. Now, the company I worked for provided dormitory-style housing and an employee meal plan, which I liked because some jobs that I've worked, other than Yellowstone, they'll give you housing, but they won't have a meal plan, so that means you have to get your own groceries and cook for yourself. Some people like that. I personally do not like that. I don't really like cooking. It's kind of a hassle. It's also more expensive, just groceries, especially depending on where you are. So in the case of Yellowstone, especially since there's not really grocery stores around there, it's super convenient to have a meal plan. It's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's they have a variety of food, and usually each day there's like a different, like, sometimes they'll have Chinese food, Indian food, they'll have ribs, they'll have what else? Just Thai food sometimes, pretty much anything you can think of. And I had a lot of food that I had never tried before, so that was kind of interesting. But yeah, and then there's usually a full salad bar. You can have a nice salad. They have a full, there's coffee, soft drinks, and milk, bagels, and toasters on the counter there, microwave, soup, everything you could want really is there, and it's included. It's deducted from your paycheck, or at least that's how I did it, deducted from your paycheck, along with housing, and it was pretty affordable housing. I want to say when I was there, it was about $470 a month, I think. Yeah, so. In the dormitory-style housing, there's 4 main dorms. So there's actually more, but there's 4 main dorms. And you can request, before you get there, you can request from housing to, well, you can just not request anything if you don't really care. But I requested a quiet dorm, which they provided for me. I ended up in one of the 2 quiet dorms. And when you end up in a quiet dorm, it usually means you're going to be, your neighbors in the dorm are going to be older people, usually. Or at least that's what I've seen in my 2 seasons there, which is totally fine for me because I just wanted a quieter space. My friend, in her first season, stayed in what was known as the party dorm, which she did not realize until she got there. And, it was very noisy, and she ended up moving out of that dorm into a different dorm, the quiet dorm. So if quiet, is something that's important to you, I would highly recommend putting in a request for housing to be put into a quieter dorm. But yeah, and then you get 2 roommates, or not 2 roommates, you and one other person are in one room, which is nice, so it's not like 4 people in a room, which I've had before, unfortunately. So, and then you usually have your own bathroom as well. Sometimes it's a Jack and Jill bathroom, so it depends. Then sometimes it's a private bathroom. But yeah, I enjoyed the housing. I enjoyed the meal plan. I had no complaints about either one of them. They're affordable for what they are. And very convenient, especially being in such a remote location. So everything was kind of provided for you. Now, the 5th thing to consider is danger. Danger in Yellowstone. I would say the main dangers are just things that are natural to the park itself. There have been a lot of cases of people who want to go hot potting, which is, these young people go out into the woods late at night trying to find some hot spring to just soak in, and they end up getting into one that's way too hot, and it doesn't end well for them. So just the natural geothermal features of the park can be very, very dangerous, even fatal. There's been plenty of fatalities from the geothermal features just throughout the park. So that is something to be very aware of. If you see signs saying, you know, don't go here, there's geothermal activity in this area, don't go there. And don't go off boardwalks, don't go off trails. You never know what's going to be off the trail. You know, sometimes it can look like regular ground, but it's just like a thin crust, and then there's a hot spring underneath, and you would never know, you know, until it's too late. So that is something, you know, to consider. And then also just the natural danger of wild animals. A lot of people don't really realize how dangerous wild animals can be, it seems. Because people will try to get super close to the bison, they'll try to get close to the elk, and think that they're friendly because they're not like a predator like a wolf or bear is going to be. But these animals can also be very dangerous in their own ways, especially during mating season when they're very aggressive and they will charge you or try to, you know, ram you or attack you in some way. And there have been plenty of people who have been injured because of that. And I mean, also these animals are just massive. Like the bison alone are more than 2,000 pounds, like minimum. So it's definitely a good idea to stay away from the animals. I think it's 75 feet away. I don't remember exactly how many feet away you have to be from the animals, but decent amount. Don't try to go up and take a selfie with them. You know, and again, there's no hospitals nearby. If you get injured, seriously injured, you'd have to be airlifted out via helicopter, which is a lot. But, yeah, and then, of course, there are, like, the predator animals, like bears, which are all over the place. There's grizzly bears and black bears both in the park. Grizzly bears are naturally more aggressive, but both can be pretty dangerous for humans. So in that, you know, circumstance, you know, it's always advised don't hike by yourself, carry bear spray, you know, make noise when you're hiking, so you don't surprise any animals, you know, or anything like that. But those are just kind of some typical dangers that you can find in the park, just throughout the park, or really any wilderness area you can find dangers like that. But the geothermal features, especially in Yellowstone, are unique, and yeah, so just something to consider. You know, you're not in a safe enclosed, like you're not in a zoo. You know, these are, you know, wild spaces, wild animals, and it's important to kind of recognize that before you go. But yeah, so those are kind of the main points I wanted to make about working in Yellowstone. It's my favorite place in the world. I hope to work there again in the future at some point. But yeah, just an absolutely beautiful, stunning place. So much fun to be there. Hikes and the mountain views and the lake and, you know, everything. So yeah, but hopefully you guys found this video helpful, especially if you are interested in working in Yellowstone yourself. But again, this was just kind of the experience from the lake village. I'm sure it's a little bit different depending on which village you're going to go to. But yeah, that was just kind of my experience and my advice that I wanted to offer. So if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, maybe subscribe. And I make videos about once a week, so